Hi, I'm Mala Melodies. Welcome to Gear4music Synths and Tech, and we are playing with V Collection 9. Life is good, my friend. And what's in 9 are 32 different instruments, and the key ones, the new ones, I want to play with in this video and show you. Lovely. So that was a little jam with a bunch of elements, but especially the CS80 as you heard here. Yeah, it's lovely. So the CS80 is, of course, the greatest polyphonic synth that's ever been made by a Yamaha in the late 70s, and is just like unlike any other synth. They really don't make them like they used to. Obviously, there's been a version of the CS80 since about 2005. That is the plug-in version. But what they bring to bear is not just the sort of the fact that computers have come on average, just the general abilities that they have when it comes to modeling instruments has moved on because time has passed, decades almost, nearly 2 decades. Let me just get a kind of vanilla sound, like basic tone, because I just want to like push the voice around a little bit and let you hear what it sounds like. This is the default sound. Did you hear that? That's aftertouch. I have a Keystep 37 from a little company called Arturia. Perhaps you've heard of them. Now, the Keystep 37 is, of course, not polyphonic aftertouch, but this does respond to MPE. So if you have an MPE controller and it is able to send polyphonic aftertouch, then you can make the plugin work with it. I don't have that, unfortunately, but that's not too bad. I'm just enjoying the really basic sound. I think there's something that happens when something's really good, you just want to like explore it. And I found with this, and we mentioned it in the interview that I did with Edouard, who is the product manager who's behind the CS80. I'll link to the interview below. But I just got really lost exploring this and really enjoying the the engine. And so I did a couple of sounds as well, by the way. How about this one? This is called Beauty Harps. Oh, it's so lovely. It's just really, really good. Like this to me is like whether or not this is a CS80. I know they modeled several CS80s. So Edouard was saying there's a kind of you have to find the golden unit within every unit because every unit is different. I have played with a real CS80 and it wasn't fully functioning and it still sounded amazing. I've said to lots of people about playing with that CS80 that half of what made it sound so amazing to me was its pitch instability. The fact that it was actually out of tune was half of what was making it sound so amazing because it created this kind of like otherworldliness to do with tuning. I think it's fair to say that when we think of analog synths, we want something that is imperfect and brings character to the table, and this does it in spades. And so that dispersion, by the way, is up here, and all of these new synths seem to have dispersion controls, and they're designed to make every voice be slightly different. And it isn't just to do with tuning, but it's also to do with the settings of various things like the envelope times and whatnot, so that the envelopes might all have slightly different settings, each voice. So every voice becomes different in some way, and it creates this kind of organic nature. So the dispersion control is set to 1, which is the default, but you can disperse further with 2 and 3. Something's gone wonky there. All just so like woozy and wonky and odd. Pro tip, if you adjust any control on an Arturia plugin, the left mouse button adjusts the control with coarse control, but if you hold the right mouse button, you get fine control, which is really important for things like filters, where just like the tiniest little difference will make all the difference. Oof. then the effects, of course, just lovely. We've got all kinds of stuff, but I think shout out to the tape echo. Reverb's lovely as well. So just, yeah, gorgeous. The chorus as well. Where is that? The chorus is here. It's really good. So I'm so like enamored with this thing. I think it's just a really interesting plugin. It's a really interesting voice. And there's no better version of this in the software realm that you can mess with. So if I had a hat, I would doff it. Next up, the MS-20. And they've done an exceptional job of modeling the filter. There are in fact two different filter versions that are in the machine, the Mark 1 and the Mark 2. Edouard said that the Mark 1's filter block is massive, which is to say that it is a huge piece of DSP, and so it can be intensive, but there is a Mark II which is less intensive, good for polyphonic because it's a polyphonic synth. That's Mark 1. It sounds really good. It is really good. And of course, you've got a high pass because the whole architecture of the MS-20 is a simple two-oscillator synth with a high pass and a low pass in series. And so they interact and create like bandpass sounds. Insane. Really enjoying the sound of the MS-20. I think it sounds wicked. And there is an SQ10 built in. That would be the step sequencer that you could get as an accessory for the MS-20. Stick it on top. And they've done their version of it here. And you can patch this into control things and get wonderful stair-stepped modulation for settings. And because, of course, it's semi-modular, it has a patch bay. So you can augment the synth, like change settings. And obviously using this, you then patch this in and create kind of stepped modulation, an interesting thing. So you can use it as a way of adding modulation, and you can also use it as a way of coming up with ideas. I've owned an MS-20 in the past. I don't own one anymore, but to me, this is just like, that's the sound. That's what I remember of it. The really aggressive, really like crazy filter, which is why so much attention has gone into it. Now, one thing that would be interesting to do is try like polyphonic MS-20. So if I create a new instance and stick it on this MIDI track here, here we have a single instance, and I will find the sort of default buzzy sound. We've got the two different filters. This is the Mark II, and this is the Mark 1. By the way, the Mark II, if I give it high res, there is a lot of bass. It's pretty gnarly, but then so's the Mark 1. Right-clicking to get fine control. Very different. The 2 is kind of smoother, basically. So if we have a nice long release, and then we go into poly down here. So go to 6th voice. If I click poly with the Mark 1 on, there is a bit of a CPU warning here. The folks at Arturia are letting us know that the Mark 1 model is pretty meaty. But since I've got a Mac M1, I'm going to just plow ahead and see how it handles. It'd be an interesting test, wouldn't it? 60%, but that's with all of the other things happening. I don't believe, yeah, it's like 35 at idle, so might be CPU intensive, but the M1 is pretty darn powerful, so one of the luxuries of owning that CPU, I guess. So then let's get into the effects. There are effects up here, and if we engage them, we've got lovely like reverbs. That's nice. So let's modulate the filters with the stair steps of the SQ. And so if we take the outputs of the channels, we've got cutoff input for the low pass here and for the high pass there. So if I go like this, so then with it fed in, we play our note, and if we adjust the EG2/EXT, nice. So you can portamento the channels, which is to say you can take the stair steps out and slew them. Well. That makes a smooth control voltage. And it's really lovely being able to use a step sequencer like this, because you're precisely controlling what's happening on each step, what's going into the filter. So with a little bit of futzing around and like fine-tuning things. And we can do the same thing, by the way, on channel B. And I assume, there you go, we can make a copy. And there's the copy. So now it's a bandpass pair, and both filters are shifting equally based on this. Pure MS-20 vibes. Let's try the Mark 1 filter. Yes, friend, it's okay. Oh. It's much barkier. So that's a combo of the LFO and the stair step thing. So it's just, yeah, I hope you get the idea of this. It's just a really lovely model of the MS-20. It's a really characterful, growly, gnarly little beastie. And in this tune, like what I was doing, you know, it's just pure. Just lovely, fuzzy, warm, like fuzz bass lines, basically. I just think it sounds really good. So that's the MS-20. Pretty good, isn't it? And that's just two of the many things that are in here. Good grief. Next up, let's look at Augmented series. This is where it takes a turn for the kind of surreal, because the Augmented Voices and Augmented Strings are hybrid instruments where they are based on pigments. If you load them up and look at the advanced section, you will recognize this is kind of pigments-ish, although it's a simplified version of what is in pigments. And basically it is a bunch of samples and it is synthesizer engines and really any combination that you care to have thereof. You've got 4 slots, and so you can have these 4-part layered elements. You can have lots of gorgeous modulation. There's loads of interesting things to explore here and like assign and set up. So it can get super deep. By the way, that's actually how you get to them. Function generators, there's LFOs, mushrooms, that is function generators, random voltage generators. You know, you can set up key scaling, there's an arpeggiator, there's lovely effects, and you know, we've looked at effects in some of the other blocks, but similar, you've got loads of tools. And then macros, because there is this kind of simplified mode. So if you find the sounds, you can browse sounds. There are, in all of these instruments, nice sound browsers, and you can search by sort of styles and genres. So it's kind of as simple or as deep as you want it to be. And so let me play you this idea, and it starts with augmented strings, but you will hear augmented voices come in, which is kind of the same idea, but voices as the kind of sample set that's inside it. Starting to get a little bit Air, I thought there. Love Air, what a band. And they use the MS-20 a great deal. But you can hear, to focus on the augmented stuff, the strings, this. Slightly weird tuning, isn't it? But you can hear there's a kind of synthesized element, that little ping pong. That, undeniably synthetic, but then mixed in with the strings. So I actually made this sound myself because I got stuck into the sort of the various things. You can come in here, turn on elements, and then come in and you've got all these different sounds. And I don't want to break this sound because I'm genuinely emotionally invested in a great deal of the music that I've written as a demonstration for this video. Because it's just like, it's like freeform. When you have like V collection, you're just like this plus this plus this plus this. I'm gonna have my augmented strings plus my MS-20 plus my CS-80. That's like an idea right there, and that's how it works. Like, so you know, this was. some chords played in with the chord mode on the key step 37. And if you come in here, you can see you literally have got attack and release controls for, you can have lovely long attacks, synthetic voices and strings. It's gorgeous. I made this sound as well. It's just triumphant, and whilst it's organic, it's also synthetic, and that's why it's augmented. It's really interesting. This is actually just like samples that you're hearing. So you've got analog modeled filters. The SEM is what we're using here. So synthetic, but also organic, and it works so well here. There's just this kind of lovely marriage of synth sounds and yeah, the glorious world where it's a halfway house between sampling and synthesis. It's great. I think it sounds amazing. And it's like a really nice complement. So that's Augmented Strings, and then by the way, just very quickly, because it is a question that you may ask, is the types of kind of samples that you have. And there's lots. If you look in here, we've got like a bunch of different things, and then you get into the sort of vocals. And if I disengage these here, and this is panned left a little bit, so I'll move it to the center. Real voices. We need more decay on that. You hear that? It's just great. Like, that stuff is great. The human voice is great. And having it as a kind of synthetic tone, an oscillator that is just the human voice that you can obviously pitch up and down as well, like this. And blend it with Chef's kiss. Chef's kiss. Love it. And so to play us out on Augmented Strings, let me play you a little bit more where I've got a moment further on with a bit of MS-20. joined by our friend, the CSAT. So, the Prophet. Now, of course, I've not actually messed with the Prophet a huge amount because I've been trying to manage the amount of products that are in this video. But suffice to say, as with the CS80, the Prophet 5 is a complete ground-up recreation. This isn't a update to the original Prophet. This is a total recreation. And so it has lots of the other mod cons that you'll see in the other versions, like it's got voice dispersion, and is just as authentic a model as Arturia can make for this sort of CPU cost in, you know, the year of our Lord 2022. And so to just kind of let you hear the core sound. Sounds really good. As with all of this stuff, it sounds great. Of course, the filter's kind of the thing. Lovely. It's just got this lovely, lovely, lovely warmth and heft to it. Now, there are effects, and you're hearing things like the chorus and reverb. That's without. There's a little bit of distortion. It sounds really good as well. Yeah. Oh my goodness. Yeah. So perhaps you're seeing that there's some character to these synthesizers, and I think that's like what distinguishes the new recreations like this. Really have a sense of an analog synth living behind the screen, you know. Try and touch it, but I can't quite, but I can with my mouse and with some MIDI controllers or whatnot, and it's there and it's got presets. I can recall it perfectly with my DAW. The sound is very good. So, a bass monster as much as a pad monster. And we have voice dispersion, as I mentioned, which is the ability to sort of alter the voices to all be a little bit different to one another. And it sort of simulates a kind of old Prophet. And so to play us out with the Prophet, I've got like a little idea where the Prophet is doing a kind of triumphant string over some augmented strings, some MS-20, and some drums. That's the strings in the background. And then let's fade in the Prophet. Doing kind of saw strings. And then with the voice dispersion thing, why don't we try that? I'll knock it to custom, no dispersion, and listen to the tuning as I adjust the pitch dispersion control. CS80 again. Lovely. So next is the Prophet VS and the piano. Now, I've had less time to spend with the Prophet VS, and it's a really interesting synth to dive into, so I feel a little bit guilty. I hope that Callum from Arturia can forgive me for not spending more time on this, because in his words, it's actually one of his favourites. We should never use the F word, of course, when describing your children, but I think that this is okay, as long as it doesn't hear us. I don't think the mic input is on. And the Prophet VS is, of course, a digital oscillator synthesizer that has an analog filter. And made by Sequential in the 80s, this thing is just like a gorgeous marriage of digital and analog. Always the greatest of combos. So the idea of it is that you've got 4 oscillators in different corners, and you're using a joystick to move between them, to focus them by changing their level, and then a traditional kind of subtractive analog synthesizer voice that follows it. Now, of course, it gets a little deeper because there are other things built into this, the ability to sort of modulate the path of how the joystick traverses. And obviously lots of extra modulation and things going on. You hear things happening. There's a modulation matrix. There's loads to get stuck into if you get deep into it. And of course, lots and lots and lots of presets, as with these other sounds. And maybe we could try a few of the presets. Let me just quickly make a copy of this because, again, I'm quite married to this. I don't want to lose what I am doing with my sounds. So if I go to here, you can see these things in caps are original presets, which is really cool. For example, choir. With the filter opened up. Lovely. Really gritty. suppose in a way, thematically, it feels like the kind of genesis of like the augmented voices and strings, really. It's like that idea of analog and digital married together. Random. Oh wow, we can randomize all the settings. How about that? Let's do that. And the panning. Weird. So weird. Let's add some reverb to that. More delay. Oh, weird. Wonderful. The ability to like randomize the parts. So good. So good. And you can see here that we've got the ability to pick different waveforms, and this is where things get a bit bonkers, because you've got the original factory where there are a bunch of waveforms, but you've also got the ability to import user waveforms, and also there are loads of other ones too. So just tons and tons and tons of different sounds. I just don't have the time to get into this in this video, but I hope you can see the potential here. Really gritty, interesting 80s vibes. With the marriage of digital and analog, but of course with all new modeling for just better sound in all. And more of this. That is dispersion. So we have the ability to disperse the voices. And here, do you see this pan control? So we can get panned voices. Hear that? So a particular voice can be panned in a particular place. So finally, piano. And I've actually got another little jam with Prophet VS and the piano together doing their little thing. And so the piano is a synthesized, like physical modeling instrument, which is to say that it is a virtual synth, but it's based on a real thing. It sounds like a real piano, but it's not. It's really interesting. So if I put on like nice. What I've got here is a little jam where basically I was playing with that same thing, which is the strum mode on the KeyStep 37. Strum lets you hold down a key and it literally strums a chord. By the way, just so I actually explain this, because it is relevant, is that there are lots of different models of piano in here, and you have the ability to come in and really go a bit freaky with the voice, which is to say... Lovely. Reverb, and this is based on plate 140 from the effects collection, so it's a EMT 140 plate. And you haven't just got plates in here, by the way. Timbre control, which has the effect here of adjusting the age, which is to say the kind of detuning of the piano. It's out of tune, it's not been tuned in decades. it like that. And then brightness. Fascinating. Love it. But the idea that's with a little bit of delay eternity, which is there. Nice delay. I also couldn't resist a little bit of grain delay on send A. Aha! Our friend Prophet VS joins for the final jam. So we have two instances of Piano V3. This one, the Japanese Grand. Softly played in the background. I might darken this. You hear that? Turn up the volume a little bit, it's a bit quiet. And then what's going to join this is our friend CS80, bringing it all back. There she is. MS20 joins us again for the final jam, and Augmented Voices. Hi. V Collection 9. If you're interested in picking up V Collection 9, a link to it is below. Gear4music sell things, including software. So if you're interested in picking it up, check out the link, check prices and whatnot, more information. And if you have questions, by the way, do leave a question and subscribe for more videos about software and hardware. Things of this nature. And I hope you enjoyed this little sneak peek at V Collection 9. This is obviously a bit of a flying visit, though it's very long. We haven't really looked at hardly anything because there's 32 instruments in this thing. It's absolutely bonkers value. So hats off. If I had a cap, again, I would doff it. Well done, Arturia, and thank you very much for watching. Subscribe, and we'll see you next time.